In the year 1671, the Puritan beliefs represented a very strict branch of Christianity. Christians, being true believers in Jesus Christ and his teachings, were also subject to temptation of the devil. In the town of Groton, Massachusetts, the religious faith was extremely dominant in the lives of its inhabitants. Elizabeth Knapp was a 16-year-old servant to a man of God, known as Reverend Samuel Willard, when she first encountered a true demonic presence.
Beforehand, Willard was known for his sermons about damnation and obedience to God. He claimed, although God is ready to receive them, the devil is ready to endeavor them. The turning point to this was when Knapp began to express signs of demonic possession. Willard took a careful and scientific approach to deal with the matter, calling in medical doctors on several occasions in an attempt to find a cure.
Elizabeth began behaving in a strange and unwanted manner, often bursting into fits of laughter at unsuspecting moments alongside shrieking, and as these symptoms intensified, she broke into violent episodes and even attempted to off herself by jumping into a fire. She complained of being strangled, but more often than not was performing these acts herself. Within 3 weeks of her demonic behavior, Knapp confessed of having multiple encounters with the devil himself over the course of 3 years. He had come to her because of her discontent with her life, offering her wealth, the finest silks, to show her the whole world and to make her a witch. As her time in the Willard household elongated, her visits with him increased and became a daily occurrence. In result, she was attempted to murder all who surrounded her parents, neighbors, and even the Willard children, especially the youngest, and herself.
During the second month of her possession, Knapp spoke truthful words, although Willard did not believe. She claimed to give a sample of blood and a signed covenant to the devil in sacrifice of herself, physically and spiritually. For Knapp to proclaim that she was simply possessed was not enough for Willard. Him being her minister, he did all he could to help her through such terrible circumstances. Afterwards, it seemed that her fits started to intensify with multiple attempts at suicide, striking those who tried to retain her, spitting in their faces, and finishing with a gruesome laugh. A few days later, the devil made evidence of his presence and control over the body of the young Elizabeth Knapp. The devil made his presence known, Willard continued, by drawing her tongue out of her mouth most frightfully to an extraordinary length and greatness, and making many amazing posture of her body. The devil later expressed himself vocally, screaming to Knapp's father and others, calling them rogues, charging them for folly and going to hear a black rogue who told them nothing but a parcel of lies and deceived them, and many like expressions. The devil later challenged Willard, calling him a great rogue, then a great black rogue, a man who speaks nothing but a company of lies. Willard later fought back, calling him a liar and deceiver. The devil replied simply by claiming he was not Satan, but rather a pretty black boy, and Knapp his pretty girl. In response, Willard had expressed his hatred towards the devil. Through God's grace, the demonic presence had replied with, "You had better love me," after the Reverend's statement. As the population in the room began to increase, the conversation between man and devil multiplying, Willard attempted to stop the debate and commence prayer. The devil, on the other hand, had different intentions, resuming the taunting of his spiritual adversary, later claiming to be stronger than God.
Following the days of the encounter, Knapp confessed that the devil entered into her the second night after her first taking, that when she was going to bed he entered in at her mouth, and he had been in her ever since. She later added that, if there were ever a devil in the world, there was one in her. After a small minister assembly, the devil continued to speak within her on occasion. The violent fits began to diminish gradually. Knapp claimed within a few weeks that the devil was physically gone, and although less violent and frequent, she was still victim to multiple fits when strangers came to visit her.
By the third month of her possession, she confessed well again that she had never signed a covenant and denied knowing whether or how the devil had entered her, once again admitting her fits were caused by her discontent and that she was still tempted to murder. When Willard later brought her case to a close, Knapp was still possessed, acknowledging that the devil had majority of power over her body, but spoke of a passionate hope that he should not have her soul.
In his final observation, Willard viewed Knapp's behavior based on the Puritan perspective of demonic possession. Willard believed sincerely that Nap's symptoms were satanic, and that the devil was truly present within the young servant. To prove his statements, Willard pointed that the strength witnessed in Nap's fits was beyond the force of dissimulation, that the events could not be seen if proved as a natural occurrence, and finally, when the voice spoke within her vessel, there seemed to be no movement in her mouth, nor vocal cords, and her throat looked to be the size of a fist. Willard was also able to take note of the hostility Nap had presented to him during her possession, which she never expressed prior to the demonic presence. Not only that, but the words uttered to him were disparages Nap said the devil had recommended during her temptations over her, and that Nap had freely acknowledged that the devil was wont to appear in her in the house of God, and divert her mind, and charge that she should not give ear to what the black-coated rogue spoke.
Upon Puritan beliefs, Willard knew for a fact that this was nothing but Satan's typical behavior, although Nap was still seemingly possessed. Tracing back to an older memory, Willard was not sure whether or not Nap had truly become a witch. Charity would hope the best, he said. Love would fear the worst, but thus much is clear. She is an object of pity, and I desire that all that hear of her would compassionate her forlorn state. She is, I question not, a subject of hope, and therefore all means ought to be used for her recovery. Upon further inspection, Willard was set to believe that Nap was not simply an innocent victim, but the devil had been cast upon her due to her dissatisfaction. She is a monument of divine severity, Willard finished, and the Lord grant that all that see or hear may fear and tremble.
Following Puritan beliefs, the possession of Elizabeth Knapp was simply brought upon by her mixed feelings as to what she wanted to become as a young woman. The sin she had committed may not have been completely evident, but was quite simple, her sin being the act of discontent with one's image and conditions. This sin was also considered a sin that separates human from witch, which is why Knapp had perceived herself oftentimes as a witch. In the possession, the devil took advantage of Elizabeth by using her discontent and attracting her with objects she most desired. The devil's motive? Well, he would simply lead the victim into committing sins identified with witches, but thankfully was not able to win her over completely.
Regardless of all Willard's fears, Knapp never truly became a witch. There is no doubt that this possession was recorded as one of the most unique yet strange satanic occurrences in history. So unusual that even medical scientists could not decipher any logical reasons for Elizabeth's sudden violent outbursts, except for demonic presence. Being in the late 1600s, the research and decoding of mental illness was not as productive as it is presently, which leads us to believe most outbursts are signs of demonic possession. In the end, we must ask ourselves the real question: is this human possession or simply untreated mental cases?